What's up, listeners out there in Northwest Arkansas? This is exciting. This is my first show of the podcast I'm starting, A Natural State of Things. Today, I talked to one of my friends from high school. His name's Andrew Palmer. He's a freshman here at the University of Arkansas. He's really heavily involved with a marine biology RSO, and he does a lot of invasive species removal and does tree planting, things of that nature. And we talked about basically things he does for his organization, how he got into it, stuff like that. He gets kind of dense at times, but I try to reel him back in. He's a really smart guy. He knows a lot about science, so you'll definitely learn something if you finish listening through the podcast. And once again, if you have any questions about being on the podcast or about how to get involved with the radio station or anything, you can look up KXUA on Instagram or Twitter. The radio station is 88.3 FM in Fayetteville. And also, you can Twitter DM me at Dodd Paxton is my Twitter DM. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. It was a great first one, and I'll be back again next week. Welcome to A Natural State of Things. This is a podcast about sustainability in Northwest Arkansas, and I'm your host, Paxton Dodd, and it's presented by KXUA 88.3 Fayetteville. Hello, I'm Paxton, and this is
Hello, I'm Andrew Palmer.
This is Andrew Palmer, freshman here at University of Arkansas.
Second semester.
And welcome to our first show of A Natural State of Things. Once again, this is a show about sustainability in NWA and environmental stuff. Andy's here today from...
Well, I'm in the Fulbright College of Arts and Sciences.
Yes.
I'm studying biology and sociology, but I think we're going to talk a little bit more about biology today.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. What is it you're representing? What organization?
Well, I'm an officer of the Marine Biology Student Organization on campus.
Okay.
Specifically SEME, the Support, Education, and Awareness for Marine Ecosystems.
All right, so what is it that SEME, what do you guys do?
So Arkansas is a landlocked state.
Yes.
So there isn't a whole lot of access to marine ecosystems, particularly saltwater ecosystems. So
I would say there's zero access.
Yeah, that's something that you tend to have in a landlocked state.
Yes. Okay.
So something that we've been talking about is how to bring the ocean closer to Arkansas. So we could either let climate change do that for us, or I think what
yes.
the better strategy, at least now, is to just increase the amount of education available to students and just make it so that marine ecosystems have a voice.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's super interesting. Okay, so what kind of got you interested in doing stuff with the marine biology RSO?
Well, actually, the marine biology RSO didn't exist before this year.
Oh, okay. So are you a founder?
I am one of the founding members. However,
ladies and gentlemen, we're in the presence of a founder.
That's true, but the real founder is someone named Savannah Sapal.
Okay.
It was her idea to start the club, and it's been her baby. But
yes, you've just been a godmother.
Exactly, taking credit from the periphery.
There we go. So what made you interested in marine biology?
Well, I think marine biology is one of the most fascinating parts of biology. It's so alien,
Yeah, isn't parts of the ocean haven't even been discovered yet, things like that?
Well, we've mapped pretty well most of the ocean with sonar and related technologies, but with regard to marine ecosystems and biology, particularly at deep water ecosystems, those are it's incredibly difficult to get down there.
Yeah, because of the water pressure, things of that nature, things like that. Okay, cool. All right, so what are you guys doing in Arkansas specifically? Why should people care about the marine RSO?
Well, even though we don't have access to an ocean, water quality issues are at the forefront of any ecosystem.
Yeah.
Particularly in the Ozark Mountains, we have the Beaver Watershed, which leads into the Beaver Lake.
Would you mind defining what a watershed is for those of us who might not know?
A watershed is basically the path that water takes into a large body of water.
Okay.
So when it rains anywhere in this area, the rain makes its way into streams and tributaries that lead into the Beaver Lake.
Yeah.
and that is where parts of Fayetteville, Rogers, Bentonville get most of their water.
From the Beaver Lake?
From Beaver Lake,
Okay,
in the
okay.
Beaver Watershed District.
Okay, so what do you guys do with that?
Well, we've been working recently with the Beaver Watershed Alliance, which is an organization that is focused on improving and maintaining water quality for the Beaver Watershed. So we help remove invasive species, particularly on hillsides and in what we call riparian areas.
Yes.
And let me discuss a little bit about what a riparian area is.
Let's hear about riparian area.
A riparian area is the border between a like land and right where the water starts.
Okay.
Be it stream or lake.
Okay.
And these areas are very important because it's kind of like the last line of defense for nature with regard to pollution and erosion.
Okay.
So let's say that you have, it's particularly important in agricultural settings to have a good riparian barrier because it helps filter out some of the phosphoric and nitrogenous wastes produced by fertilizers.
So for those of us who may not be biology majors, put that into some layman's terms.
So
Giving me a metaphor.
So let's say that you have a bunch of cows. You have a lot of cows or you have a lot of crops and you've decided to start fertilizing these crops.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest fertilizers is has a high amount of phosphorus in it and nitrogen as well.
Okay.
The thing is, when it rains, a lot of this waste, the excess nitrogen and phosphorus, is swept into the streams and rivers.
Oh, okay.
And as these nitrogenous and phosphoric excesses are pulled into our tributaries, they make their way into our lakes and later into the Gulf of Mexico. And these high nutrient substances, when they make them into these bodies of water, you get something called algae blooms.
Okay.
And these algae blooms are particularly deadly in parts of the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, which is the cause of the dead zone, right?
That's
partially,
exactly right.
Yeah. For those of you that didn't know, the dead zone, there's actually in the Gulf of Mexico right now, there's like a growing like area of water that supports or isn't able to support life, like marine life, due to what Andy is like talking about. Which is why what he does ties into the like overall theme of sustainability and supporting ecosystems for those creatures and stuff.
The algae, as they bloom, it just takes the oxygen out of the water as they decay, and that the low oxygen content kills a lot of fish and other wildlife in the area.
Yeah. Very sad. Very sad.
Yeah. So with regard to planting.
Yeah. I hear you're a man who is not a fan of honeysuckle.
That's right. I hate it.
Tell me about your hatred of honeysuckle.
Stupid honeysuckle.
Okay.
Death to the Amur honeysuckle.
Okay. So
the honeysuckle is invasive in a lot of areas. When I say honeysuckle, I'm referring to specifically something called Amur honeysuckle or Lanicerae mackii.
Of course.
It's
the plant we all have heard about in our childhoods.
So it's actually a very pretty plant. Yeah. It's endemic to parts of Asia, but it was brought to the U.S. as part of a like beatification thing. Someone thought it was a really pretty plant, so they just brought it over, planted it, and it has some positive erosion qualities because they have an extensive shallow root system. But the problem is it just, like most invasive plants, it just outcompetes a lot of the native plants. Okay. So it'll choke out forests because it's the first in the summer to come to leaf.
So this meaning that it takes away nutrients from other plants because it's so like expansive? Is that what you're saying?
Well, partially.
Okay.
So it's one of the first plants to come to leaf in the spring.
Okay.
So that means that some of the other plants that are just starting to bud and grow their leaves, they don't have access to as much sunlight because of all the leaf coverage of the extensive Lanicerae mackii.
That makes sense. Which is the honeysuckle.
Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we've been doing with the Beaver Watershed Alliance is removing some of this honeysuckle from parts of Fayetteville because it's just all over the place.
Yeah.
This is the honeysuckle that a lot of you have seen. It's like a very pretty white flower.
Is it the one where you can eat it and it tastes like honey?
It's one of of those.
Delicious. Deliciously evil.
No, it's not all of those. It's been not native. It's been introduced throughout the Northeast, but it's not as much of a problem as it is here in the Midwest and South.
Okay.
It's just really taken over.
Yeah. So all these terrible things you're telling me about, how could an individual hoping to sort of aid these problems get involved with what it is you guys do?
And see, that's the thing that was really fascinating to me when I got to the university, because I heard about all these problems, these algae blooms. I didn't know about the honeysuckle problem until this year, but it's very easy for individuals to get involved right off the bat.
Okay.
The Beaver Watershed Alliance is taking volunteers. They usually have 1 to 2 volunteering events every year.
And I'm sure if you just Google Beaver Watershed Alliance, you can find their website fairly easily.
Yeah, the programming, they have a list. Last week, actually, we went and we planted some trees and bushes on a riparian barrier, buffer region.
Yeah, you guys do stuff pretty like almost like bi-weekly, like planting trees and removing species and things of that nature. And where can like people contact or like find your guys' organization?
So if you're not a student at the University of Arkansas, you can still volunteer with the Beaver Watershed Alliance. In fact, most of the volunteers in the Beaver Watershed Alliance are not students. The Beaver Watershed is a huge region. So like we did a volunteer event in Elkins last weekend, which is it's about an hour away from Fayetteville.
Yeah.
So extensive. But if you are a student at the University of Arkansas, then I recommend that you join the you can look into a lot of organizations. The CME organization is very dedicated to this particular cause. And if you're interested, you can look at HogSync, and you can find more information.
You could also email Andy.
You can also email me at aspalmer at uark.edu.
There we go. Okay, cool.
But
you could also find Andy in Hots Hall, goofing around.
That's right.
At any day of the week. He's a known goofer.
I'm quite the goof, yes.
Quite the goof, yes. Cool, man. Is there anything else you want to talk about in regards to the organization or things you've seen out in, like, is this a problem that sort of like definitely can be fixed if enough people sort of like get onto it, or is it kind of a little bit overwhelming?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to address.
Okay. Like specifically, let's say the honeysuckle problem. Like, is that something that can, if enough people helped out, it could like be significantly helped?
Oh yeah, it's very possible to significantly help the health of many areas by removing honeysuckle. The problem, it's hard to eradicate in any region. It's very prolific, which means it spreads very successfully. It produces a lot of berries, a lot more berries than some of the native, more of the native honeysuckle does, which we call coral berry.
Yeah.
So honeysuckle is spread through birds, right?
Yeah.
Mostly. So birds come and they eat the berries, but since the Linicera maccae, the honeysuckle that we've been talking about, is so prolific with the amount of berries it has, and maybe some other possible competitive advantages, it spreads very easily. So it is possible to remove.
So you're saying we should kill all of the birds in the area?
Well, that would
solution.
solve some of the problems. I think that we might have to ask an ornithologist, see if there are any other
That's
negative
an ethical.
side effects. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess birds might be important.
Yeah, maybe. But other than that,
Bats with wings, no.
You're saying that it can be like, if enough people were to help out and like spend enough time on it, it would be.
The health of a forest the health of a forest can be significantly helped by removing the Linicera maccae. Because it chokes out the undergrowth. So by removing it, you give that native undergrowth a chance to come to adulthood, and they tend to last longer, be more hardier, right?
Yeah.
When they reach adulthood.
Okay.
Because they are native, so they are better adapted to the environment.
Yeah.
For example, the Linicera maccae have a rather, like I said, shallow root. So it's possible through controlled burning to kill a lot of the young Linicera maccae. The CME organization also does a lot more than just invasive plant removals with Beaver Watershed. We also, about every month, we work with the Wildlife Society in presenting marine biology along with just ecology to 4th graders, 5th graders, that demographic. So we go to schools and we present, like, this is what ecology is, and we also bring specimens to show the kids. The kids love that, so it's a good way to reach out to...
It's all about the kids here.
It is.
Yeah.
Exactly. We're also working on an event teaching people about taxonomy and how to sort specific kinds of sponges and stuff like that. So if you're interested in something like that, it's definitely something you can check out on OrgSync. And with regard to affecting access to marine biology on campus, we're also putting in a saltwater tank in Champions. So it'll have.
How about that?
Yeah, it's pretty neat. So that should be coming out sometime this semester, next semester.
Sweet.
Have lots of soft corals, and we're looking at putting in some invertebrates. So that'll be really neat.
Wow.
Coming soon to a Champions Hall near you.
Thank you. So I think that's if you have nothing else, that's like what I want to talk to you about. Once again, guys, the Marine RSO is called SEMI as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can contact Andy. You can find it on HogSync. I'm sure they're on the Arkansas Newswires and things of that nature when they have events. If you want to have any more questions about the podcast, you can at me on Twitter at Dodd Paxton. It's my name. Or anything like that. And this has been KXUA 88.3. Thank you to our gracious station manager, Matt, for supporting us here.